Well, thank y'all for having me. I live in Austin. I've been there now for about 11 years. We moved to go to for me to go to business school. I was living in El Paso for about 6 years, where I helped build a company that was managing real estate on both sides of the border, from Tijuana, San Diego, down to Chihuahua, Juarez, Monterey, up into Texas, and so know a little bit about land management and work for the National Park Service between year one and two at business school. Did a business plan of all things for the Grand Canyon, and realized that there was a real need for financial acumen in the natural resource management space. And so I became associate director for Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation. When I got there, we were looking at how do we deal with roughly $2 billion in settlement dollars from settlement funds from the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. And that came into the state in a couple of different ways. One through the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, one through what was called Restore, which was a new governmental agency set up to deal with it, and ended up doing and leading the largest land transaction for conservation purposes in Texas history, called Powderhorn Ranch. Ended up managing that piece of property, where we did habitat restoration work. We improved and made the coastline more resilient, installed renewable energy, managed oil and gas leases and grazing leases on behalf of the state. Ended up doing that on about 30,000 acres across Texas. Ended up buying land on behalf of Parks and Wildlife from the General Land Office. We put about 6,000 acres along the Texas coast into permanent conservation. And so I've got a background in this, and I understand the real force of good that this office can be for all Texans. And as was mentioned, it manages 13 million acres of public lands. It contributes to and manages the largest K through 12 educational endowment in the country. It provides benefits to roughly 7,000 veterans out of the 1.5 million veterans that live in the state of Texas right now. Oversees the Alamo, and as was mentioned, about 83% of its budget is in federal natural disaster relief funding, and helping Texans prepare for and recover from natural disasters. What we've seen over the last 20 years is that those in the highest offices in Texas have really failed to address the great challenges of our time. We lead the nation in billion-dollar natural disasters. We rank 44th in per pupil spending. And we've got a Veterans Land Board. As I mentioned, we've got 1.5 million veterans in the state of Texas, a Veterans Land Board within the General Land Office that has not had an executive director now going on 2 years. We also lead the nation in CO2 emissions. And I mention all of this because this office has the power to address those challenges. Unfortunately, it has been used as a political stepping stone. The person that I am running against is an ophthalmologist out of Lake Travis, has no background in natural resource management, and in fact has profited off the backs of veterans through a for-profit private university that has graduation rates for veterans through their GI Bill funds that's in the 22% range. And just to put that into perspective, University of Texas graduation rate is in the high 70s, and the average debt is about $22,000. Those who are leaving the National American University, on which my opponent's husband sits as the chair of the board, and who was on the board previously, their debt load is about $33,000. And in contrast, we were up in DC about a month and a half ago fighting for the passage of the Honoring Our Pact Act, which ultimately passed and provides about 3.5 million veterans with benefits that they deserve, that they've earned in relation to their service and being exposed to toxic chemicals through burn pits. And so we're focused on traveling the state. I'm in Corpus right now. I put 60,000 miles on my truck over the course of this campaign. We were in Longview about a week ago as part of our dance hall tour of Texas. We're going to be in Helotes. We were in Amarillo. We're covering the state not just talking to Democrats, we're talking to those who feel like they've been left behind by their party, who feel left behind by their elected officials, and really focusing on three basic Texas values: stewardship, education, and service. We're stewards not just of our land, air, and water, not just of the Colorado River, Palo Duro Canyon, the Piney Woods, but also of our neighbors when they need us. And we should be utilizing the $8.4 billion that we have in natural disaster relief funds to uplift communities that have been impacted by some of the most disastrous storms in our nation's history. I also believe that regardless of party, we have a value in education. And as I mentioned, we've got the largest educational endowment in the country, and we rank 44th in the amount of money nationally, 44th in the amount of money that we spend on our students K through 12. And lastly, I think that we all share a value in service, and not just public service and being servant leaders, which we should expect of our elected officials, but also in honoring those who've honored us with their service. And so, as Susan mentioned, these offices are somewhat unknown to folks, but what we're trying to do is educate people about the fact that whether you live in East Texas or you're living in Pflugerville, that this office has an impact on how our schools are funded, on the state's contribution to public school funding, which therefore has an impact on your property taxes. If you're a veteran in the state of Texas, you should care who runs this office. And lastly, I will say that what you're doing matters, that what we're seeing out in the field is that people are fed up and that they want alternatives. What we got to make sure of is that people vote. And so I want to thank you all for taking the time to have us here. And I guess I'll open it up for questions.